The charging space in the last year and a bit that I've had an electric vehicle has changed dramatically, and for me, all the better. Well, welcome to episode 3 of the EV Boomer. I am indeed that boomer. I'm Rick. I live just outside Atlanta in Georgia, and definitely a curmudgeon and definitely a recent convert to the electric vehicle space. And in this episode, probably a short one, I'm going to talk about the changes to the charging space that I have noticed really in the last year and a quarter. It was June 2024 that I picked up my Hyundai Ioniq 5 and really got to grips with it. Now, they talk about two anxieties really when you come to an electric vehicle. There is range anxiety, which takes quite a while to get over when you realize the car doesn't empty the battery pack in the first 5 miles. And then there's charger anxiety. And in this year, I find it's less of a problem than it was last year, but that's getting to a charger. Are they full or do they work? And in some cases, has somebody stolen the cables? All of these are kind of true things. And so talk a little bit about range anxiety. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 fully charged says it's 303 miles. That's its estimated range. If I drive to and from work, which is a mixture of street driving and interstate driving, I can average about 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour. So the Guessometer on the car, which tells you our estimated range, thinks at 80% charge I can do about 305 miles. The reality is, and you may have noticed this particularly when you're new to an EV and you hit the interstates and start doing 70, 75, 80, 85, your range drops dramatically the faster you go. So as I've found out, I've managed to ease off. If I'm on the interstate, I'll just set it to cruise control at about 70, 72, maybe a little higher, and just let the world go by. They can all rush to their places. Really sounding like my dad did. I used to whiz around everywhere at 80, 85, even in England and the US. Now, 70, 72, it'll still get me there. Maybe a couple of minutes behind you doing 80, but not too bad. So that I find helps my range, and it keeps the Hyundai to about 3.5 miles a kilowatt hour on the open road and on the interstate. So now I kind of know that I can get maybe 250, 260, 270 miles at that range if I've got 100% charge. But what I have found is that there are two journeys I do regularly throughout the year. One is just northwest of Atlanta to Columbia, South Carolina, and then one from, again, just outside Atlanta to Asheville, North Carolina. The Columbia journey I've done a few times, done it twice now in the Ioniq, and I find that technically I can probably do from here to the front door of where I'm going fine, and still have a few, spare battery capacity to head off to a charger. But a year and a quarter ago, I really only had one high-speed charging option on the way, and that was in Augusta, Georgia. There's an Electrify America just outside in a place called Grovetown. And that one made me a little bit nervous because last year, EA wasn't having the best year for reliability. And so I would frequently I would check, a couple of days before the journey and stuff. I would see that a couple of the chargers were out of action, or it was constantly full, or it was just one of those things. And so I made the decision to actually take the gas car that particular time. Fast forward to this year, and there have been massive strides in improvement. But also, there was a Rivian charger, 6 Rivian chargers just outside Augusta, that last year were only available for Rivian cars. This year, they're open to all vehicles. So that added another set of 6 chargers into my pot. Also, another change this year is the Tesla superchargers opened to the Hyundai cars. I have my adapter that Hyundai provided free of charge. Thank you very much for that. It did come. I did get it. And I've used it a few times. So that added up more chargers. Now, at the time, ironically, Augusta only had Tesla version 2s. So they weren't open to the Hyundai car. But they've replaced, I think, 2 of them or added a new one. So there are now 2 sets of version 4 chargers in Augusta, which is fantastic. The version 4s are great for the Ioniq because you can park in a bay and the charging cable is long enough to get to, the passenger side where the charging port is. If you go to a version 3 charger of a Tesla, you have to kind of occupy 1.5, 2 spaces, which, if the charger's busy, does annoy Tesla drivers. So I can see where they're coming from. The other thing, though, to point out with a Tesla supercharger on Ioniq is you don't get the maximum speed you can enjoy. The Hyundai is using 800-volt architecture. So the fast superchargers, such as EVgo, Rivian, Electrify America, and many others, can do the 800 volts. And so they'll be listed as 350 kilowatt or 400 kilowatt chargers. They will, and I've seen it on mine, and most I've seen is about 230 kilowatts. 240, 242 actually, I think was the fastest I ever got, which is fantastic speed. You can go 10% to 80% in about 20 minutes, which is by the time you park the car, and I've done this at some, there's a gas station now on I-20 as well. There's another one that's opened up. There's an EVgo. You pull through, you plug it in. By the time you run into the gas station, you go to the restroom, you buy some snacks, drinks. By the time you get back out to that car, I've either shut off at 80% or I'm pretty close to it. So it doesn't take any extra time. That's a common myth. Most folks say, oh, well, you're going to have to wait forever. Not really. By the time you do what you need to do in your business at a gas station, you're pretty much close to what you need to be to continue your journey or not there. Now, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. If you go to Buc-ee's, which is a gas station chain, particularly in the South here in the US. Phenomenal. Huge, biggest gas station I've ever seen. Twice now, I've actually charged at them. There's got Mercedes-Benz branded chargers, which are phenomenally fast. And if you're techie, they're the Alpatronics, which are phenomenal, very reliable chargers. And I've gone into Buc-ee's, and by the time I get back to the car, not only has it charged to the limit, to what I want to set it to, I'm very close to having to pay idle fees. I think one time I was about a minute away, and the last time I was 2 minutes away from paying that 50 cents a minute idle time, which I don't want to do, but you're also depriving somebody else. And what was interesting actually at the Buc-ee's, and I've just wandered off a bit, was they had, I think at this particular one in Calhoun, Georgia, they had 12 chargers. 10 were in use, and I still hit 240 kilowatts. So I was very impressed with that. Going back to the Tesla chargers, it is great to have that in the armory of chargers because there is, I think it's something like you can use 24,000 of them across the country. And my Hyundai will take it using the adapter. The difference is it's only 400 volts coming off the Tesla charger. So you don't get the throughput. So the most I can get is 97 kilowatts, but it sits there and it sits there all the way up to about 80%. And then you get, sometimes I'll see it drop a bit and then it'll start tickling down. You get that charging curve, but otherwise it sits pretty constant. And so, yes, it's slower, but there are times when actually I'll take that 97 kilowatts for 20 minutes instead of 0 kilowatts while waiting for another one. Or in some cases, actually coming back from South Carolina on one of my trips earlier this year, I had an unexpected trip on the Sunday morning. I was expecting the car was charged. I charged it up. I had enough juice to say I will get to either the Rivian or the EA in Augusta. It turned out that actually there was some soccer match I had to go to see family play, and that was away from the direction of travel. So by the time I calculated, I was going to hit the Electrify America in outside Augusta at about 1%. Now, I'm a boomer. I'm a curmudgeon. I like my creature comforts. The thought of me taking this beast down to 1% to a charger that could be full, I wasn't worried too much about it not working anymore because the reliability has improved dramatically this year. So congratulations, EA. You've done a fantastic job. I just decided I wasn't going to risk that. So on the way back, there was a set of Tesla superchargers pulled in, goosed up for about 10 minutes, and that gave me enough. It actually gave me enough to get to the EVgo station, actually a little further down I-20. But so in the space of about 8 months, I went from really one DC fast charger that was in a great place between myself here in Atlanta and Columbia, South Carolina. Let's have a look. The EV Go, there's the 2 superchargers, there's the Rivian. So I've gone from 1 that was in a great place to about 6. And then my trip to Asheville. Last year, went the old way, took the gas car. Nervous about that because there was none in the mountains if I took the mountain road. There was a Rivian, but at the time it was only Rivian. And otherwise, there was only really one charger at that time near Greensboro. And I would have actually had to take a 10-mile diversion, detour. And the same in actually Asheville, North Carolina. There was an Electrify America on the north of the city that was, I'd almost spend about $4 or $5 just to go out my way to charge up and then, burn some kilowatts getting back to where I needed. This year, the Rivian supercharger in the mountains was open and I did use it. And actually when I pulled in to the Rivian, I was at a lot higher percent than was anticipated. And I realized I could have made it all the way into Asheville. But now there was on Interstate 85, particularly if you took the interstate way, there was some EV Go's that were now open. Tesla superchargers were available. And Electrify America had built a brand new 6-stall station in Asheville, just south of the Biltmore estate, that was 2 miles from where I was going. So that worked out phenomenally. So I took the Ioniq, Sparky, as I've called her, to Asheville and charged her up and everything worked fantastically and got all the way back home with no difficulty and everything. I felt really good about that. So it took about maybe for me 8 months to a year to get over the range anxiety and then also the charger anxiety. I found very few to be out of action, probably 1 or 2. I've had to move chargers. I had one that wouldn't connect properly. Ironically, the car came in behind me, plugged into the one I moved from, and his span right up. Still a lot of, I think, I would like to say we're beyond early adoption. We're not quite mature. We're getting to maturity. So there's still a lot of bugaboos. And I maybe talk about this in a future episode. You jump in a gas car, you go anywhere in the country, you don't really give a thing. You don't care. You just know there's going to be gas stations. You just go fill up and tootle off. With electric vehicles, you have to kind of plan, which I kind of liked. It's probably what they did in the 1920s, planned their journey. Although they didn't have Google, of course, in those days. So I guess they had to have maps of, and of course, if a gas station got built, it was probably a year before it got put on a map or something. But very interestingly, you have to have a bucket full of apps. You kind of have to plan. And I do use a Better Route Planner and PlugShare to help me on that. And you're estimating what your car's going to do. So your car's planning system is also estimating. And for example, that I mentioned earlier on, it thought I was going to get to Augusta with 1%. The reality was, actually, I probably wouldn't because I was driving a little bit more conservatively than the car was thinking. But I just didn't want to chance it. And there are great videos out of spec, and I mentioned them before. I think it's, whether it's adrenaline or not, but they take pride that they pull into a charging station with 0 or 1%, or in some cases a minus number. You know, they've hit the 0 and they're running on the reserve, and every car has different reserve. Watch their videos, you'll have seen some of them just literally stop about a mile after 0. Some of them have gone on for 10 miles plus. That won't be me. Do not intend to do that. Because I'm probably going to break down at the most inopportune place. And I don't really want to get towed because I've run out of, battery volts. Now, of course, run out of gas. You just get a jerry can and off you go, and you fill it up, stick a gallon in, and off you go. Here, of course, you end up having to call for a tow truck, flatbed you and take you off to the charging station. It's probably a few $100s and a bit embarrassing seeing you get dropped off. And by the way, I was actually one charging station a few months ago, and a flatbed turned up, dropped the car off, and he plugged it in, and he was a bit sheepish. He thought he had a few more miles, but he was probably tanking along at 80, 85. Well, he admitted as much. So range anxiety, charger anxiety have really, for me, gone away. I now understand the car. It's like any car. You get to know its little foibles. and I think I've got it on mine. And the charging network, there's way more options, and I see more now. Like from here to Chattanooga, there was the Mercedes-Benz chargers up at a Buc-ee's in Calhoun. There were chargers up in Chattanooga, and there's a lot more now. A new EA station's popped up. There's 2 sets of Tesla superchargers on the way, and I think there's an EVgo as well, a Pilot Flying J. So it's just a lot easier now. Now, there's still areas, pockets of the country where there's not a lot of chargers. And when I say high speed, by the way, I mean the 350 kilowatt pluses. A year ago, there was a few charge points at 62 kilowatts, which I didn't really want to have to go and charge and sit there for an hour. I'll do it if I have to, but I didn't really want that. The fact that, on the Ioniq 5, I can go in 10, 20%, plug it in, go inside the gas station or wherever, buy what I need to buy, go to the restrooms, come out, and I'm pretty close to charge. Is a great place to be because it's not slowing you down. So that's it, really. In our next podcast, hopefully we'll talk about all the apps you're going to need. And it's just not plug and play. That would be great. I've only done that at one set of chargers, and we'll talk about that next time. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Hoping it's, if you're thinking about an EV, don't worry too much about it. It's getting to be a mature technology. In a lot of cases, it is mature. It's just getting more widespread as more and more people adopt EVs. And we're going to see a lot more on the road this month, particularly with the end of the EV credit. So there's going to be a huge buying boom. My lease isn't up until, June next year. So I did number crunch, like handing it back, paying the penalty and getting one. But my gut feeling is that sales will just fall off a cliff in October. And then there'll be I don't think we'll see $7,500 savings, but I think we'll probably see that split in the middle. So it probably makes economic sense for me to hold on to it and maybe buy a used one next year because the depreciation on these is phenomenal. And certainly, I leased, a lot of people were leasing. And so my gut feeling is next year there'll be a lot of used EVs, a lot more than this year coming onto the market, which I think will depress the price, which makes me feel a little happier. No idea what I'll buy. I like my Ioniq. I like Teslas. There's some good ones around. Mercedes-Benz, you can pick up some of those used at really good prices. Oh, and a friend at work's leased a Lucid. Oh my, that is such a beautiful car. Oh, love something like that. Maybe the piggy bank will bulge a bit further at some point in its life. Anyway, thank you. Please, as I say, subscribe to this podcast. Our plan is to, episode 3, really early days. Our plan is to make this more regular, get up, and at some point when we've got a little bit of traction, start trying to get some guests from the world of electric vehicles that appeal to you and me. You can email me, rick@evboomer.com, or you can visit the website, evboomer.com, and just find out more of the episodes, as well as please subscribe to us in your podcast catcher. So until next time, stay safe, keep driving, and keep charging.